Hello and welcome to another episode of the ICC Academy Livecast, a new podcast series where we take a deeper dive into global business trends and ideas. Today's discussion is part of a joint initiative with the ICC Trading Thoughts podcast. ICC has been bridging our global platforms to help businesses and individuals to come together during the coronavirus pandemic. I'm your host, Thomas Paris, and in this episode, we will discuss what lessons we should learn from the current crisis and the innovations required to help us achieve a more sustainable future. Our special guest today is Bertrand Piccard, CEO of the Solar Impulse Foundation. Born into a family of scientific explorers, Bertrand has made history by completing 2 round-the-world flights. The first, non-stop in a balloon, and more recently without any fuel in the Solar Impulse airplane. With this last achievement, Bertrand's goal was to demonstrate how clean technologies and renewable energy can achieve the impossible. As a second phase of his vision, and with the Solar Impulse Foundation, he launched the challenge of selecting 1,000 profitable solutions that protect the environment in order to encourage decision-makers to adopt more ambitious environmental targets and energy policies. One of the first to envision ecology through the lens of profitability, he urges for the uptake of clean and efficient technologies because they are logical rather than ecological. According to him, innovation and the pioneering spirit are key to solve the most pressing challenge of our times, ensuring the quality of life on Earth. To lead today's discussion, I am delighted to welcome our returning guest, Majda Dabaghi, Director of the Inclusive and Green Growth Knowledge Hub at the International Chamber of Commerce. Majda heads ICC's work on sustainability and climate action, and acts as the focal point for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change for business and industry non-governmental organizations. So Majda, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Thomas. It's always a pleasure to speak to you on one of these podcasts, and I'm so delighted to be able to welcome Bertrand Piccard today, who I first met at the UN Climate Change Conference in Katowice, Poland in 2018, at the occasion of one of ICC's annual Business and Industry Days. Bertrand, thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. You know how much I like to speak about this topic. It's so important, and we're going to spend a good moment together now.
Absolutely. And we're speaking today in a bit of a challenging context with the novel coronavirus pandemic that continues to threaten lives and livelihoods. We're really facing an unprecedented health and socioeconomic crisis, and governments have been very focused on the immediate threat. But as we start to think of moving past the current crisis, you've recently said that let's not go back to normal, let's go towards better. So what does going towards better look like to you?
You know, when a lot of people are saying we have to go back to normal, we have to understand what they have in mind. Normal for them is the world of the past. And the world of the past is a world that was dangerous, that was fragile. Just a virus could completely destabilize the functioning of the world. It was a world that had almost no growth. You know, when you speak of economic growth, we were, before the coronavirus crisis, at the edge of a recession. And why that? Because the people who could afford to buy something had already bought it. They needed almost nothing else. So we were in a situation that was ready to fall. The coronavirus made the fall, but something else could have done it also. So we should not go back to what we had before, because what we had before was abnormal. So what I think is a normal world is the world that we have to build now. A world that would be safer. A world where the interconnection would make synergies instead of dependencies. In the past, we were so much dependent on other countries that we just did not have what we needed in the period of crisis. So we need a world really where interdependence means synergy instead of being the slave of what other countries are doing, are manufacturing. We need to have a world that is cleaner, a world that is using modern technologies instead of old technologies. So in that sense, you have a lot of people who are afraid of the new world, but I'm not afraid of the new world. I think the new world can be much better than what we had before.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. And in terms of your vision for the future, you mentioned cleaner energy, modern technologies. Are there some lessons that we should draw from the current crisis that will help us to achieve a more sustainable future that includes those sorts of technologies?
When somebody today has 2 degrees of temperature more in his body, we call it a fever, and the guy runs to the hospital thinking he has a coronavirus fever, and everybody is panicking. But when the planet has the risk of increasing the temperature by 2 degrees, the same 2 degrees, nobody cares, or almost nobody cares. And this is something that we really have to understand, is that the long term can be as dangerous as the short term. So today we all focus on the coronavirus crisis, and we tend to say we have to put priority, to put the emphasis on what is urgent today, and don't care about the future. We will leave the future for later. But it's wrong. We can do both at the same time, both. And we see today that when governments are taking action, they can take the action very quickly, very drastically. They can do really big scale reactions. And this is exactly what we need also to solve the climate crisis and the pollution crisis. Because it's not only a question of climate, it's a question of pollution of air, which kills 7 million people per year, much more than the coronavirus. It's a question of pollution of water, pollution of the soil, it's depletion of natural resources, it's the waste that are starting to spill everywhere. The world in which we were before this crisis was absolutely a crazy world. So when we see that the governments can put the energy to react on the virus crisis, we see that potentially they could also do it against pollution, against climate change, to have a safer and cleaner world.
Right. Absolutely. And you so rightly say that, governments have been coming together, cooperating, and focusing on the urgency of today. And we'd like them to focus on also the urgency of tomorrow, which will become, more of an immediate threat. What role do you think innovation can play to help us address the climate crisis?
Innovation can bring a lot of solutions and already brings a lot of solutions. But we have to understand that the innovation of yesterday is ready to be used today. And we have to use it because a lot of people don't use it. We have everything we need to make clean energy, clean transportation, clean houses, new industrial processes. It's existing already today, but we don't use it. So very often you have governments who are saying, we need innovation. We will support innovation. We will put additional finance for innovation, and everybody applauds. But what does it mean, practically speaking? It means let's do nothing today and let's wait until tomorrow. This is what it really means. So instead of saying we need more innovation, we should say let's use the innovation that is already available today.
And to use the innovation that already exists today, what role do you feel that intellectual property has in helping to drive the development and dissemination of these innovative solutions?
Intellectual property is a drive for the companies to be innovative, to invent something new. But it's not everything you need. You need more than intellectual property. Because once you have invented something, if nobody cares about it, you will leave it in your office and it will not go into the open world. So what we need is to create a need from the governments with very clever regulations that will pull this innovation to the market. Because innovation, it's not enough to push it. Today we push it with grants, with pitches, with subsidies, with awards, and so on. But it's not enough. You need to pull it to the market. Because today, the legal framework is still permitting people to pollute. It is still allowed to put as much CO2 as you want in the atmosphere. It is still allowed to put as many plastic as you want in the water. This is allowed. So when you criticize companies who are polluting, they say, we're doing completely legal actions. We are legally doing what we do. Our production is legal. Our actions are allowed by the law. And this is a huge limit if we want to improve the situation. So we need intellectual property, okay, but we need the governments to make it illegal to pollute. And in that sense, we will have all the innovation that will be pulled to the market, and we will really have a result.
So Bertrand, you've been doing a lot of work with your initiative around 1,000 solutions. Can you tell us a little bit about how you help to pool these great technologies in favor of a green future?
Yes, what I've noticed is that a lot of companies, small, medium, or big companies, have new technologies, processes, products, materials, systems, programs, devices that can protect the environment. This is a fact. It exists. Now, if you only say to governments or to big companies, we can protect the environment, they will say it's too expensive. We cannot do it. We will just eat our margin of profit, or even we will lose money if we do that. So what I want to do is to speak the language of these people. I want to speak the language of profitability. So in that sense, I'm not a naive environmentalist. I'm a very practical person. I want to see what is financially profitable amongst all the innovation we have to protect the environment. Because some is not profitable, some is profitable. Which one? So we have launched a program. It's a big challenge, I have to say, with the Solar Impulse Foundation. After flying around the world in the solar-powered airplane, we have launched this program of identifying 1,000 of these solutions that protect the environment, but in a financially profitable way. They make profit, they create jobs. So it's a big advantage for the business. And even if there was no climate change, even if there was no problems of pollution, it would make perfect sense to implement these solutions. This is what I want to show. And today we are already at 450. 450 of these solutions have received the label of the Solar Impulse Foundation through a group of 400 independent experts who received the submission form for each solution from these companies. And the experts have to assess the credibility. So it has to work today already. We are not labeling ideas for the future. No, real products or solutions that exist today. They have to be financially profitable and they have to protect the environment. And when these three criteria are met, the solution receives the label, Solar Impulse Efficient Solution label. And it goes into the portfolio of solutions that we are bringing now already to governments, to big corporations, to show them what are the tools they need in order to have more ambitious energy policies, but also what they need to boost economic growth. Because this is the way to boost economic growth.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really such an important initiative. And in terms of boosting economic growth, what would you say to companies now who are really struggling in the face of the pandemic, where we have people who have their businesses being closed down, workers that are out of a job, who don't have their livelihoods, who often don't have social safety nets in their countries. a lot of people are going to be saying, but Bertrand, I need to put bread on the table. I can't think about boosting economic growth through climate solutions. What advice would you give to companies to ensure that they're not just looking at the immediate threat of today, but also the threats that are coming tomorrow?
I will tell them that the biggest market of the century today is not to go back to the type of production we had before, but at the opposite, to go forward into replacing all the old, outdated, and polluting infrastructures by modern ones. This is the market of the century. If you want to continue to make the old stuff as usual, we will go back into a recession very quickly, because all these things that you buy are expensive and they are a cost in the sense that they don't pay for themselves. You buy them, you use them, you throw them away, and you have nothing left. But when you have a circular economy, when you make new infrastructures, when you build infrastructures that are energy efficient or resource efficient, they pay for themselves. I give you the example of construction. If we were to renovate all the houses in the world to make them energy efficient, so you insulate them, you insulate the wall, you insulate the roof, you change the heating system that is outdated by heat pumps, you put LED lamps, you put solar cells on your roof. You have an electric car that is storing the energy from the sun and that gives it back to the house when you have a peak of consumption. But when you do that, it pays for itself. It pays for itself because it is so efficient that the reduction of the energy bill that you have every year pays for the new infrastructure, pays for the investment. So it's not a cost. It's a way to earn more money or to save money. You can do that for the industrial processes. So many factories are using old stuff that is not only polluting, but is costing a lot of money. If you make them more efficient, you will make them more profitable. Because, CO2 is not only a marker of climate change. CO2 is a marker of inefficiency, of loss of energy. You lose resources. So we have to understand today that protecting the environment is paying for itself. It is profitable. It's a new business that will create more jobs than to continue to destroy the environment. If we want to improve the future, we have to think also about the responsibility of business and trade. Because with business and trade, you can destroy the world or you can make a much better world. So I think we need to envisage what are the new ways to think. And in that sense, imagine you have a country who takes very good actions, who is inventing a new circular economy, who is introducing a carbon economy, who is putting innovations into implementation. What is trade going to do? Maybe the importation of dirty stuff from outside will just destroy the efforts of the country who wants to improve the situation internally. So we need to understand that it should be the other way around. It means that the effort of a country to do better should influence trade in general to bring better products on the market, and not the opposite, where the import of dirty stuff is going to pollute even more in the country that wants to be better. So when we see the rules of WTO, for example, the goal of WTO is to prevent distortion of competitivity. It means that if a country is not deforesting, it is allowed to stop at the border the products that come from a country that is deforesting. Now, if the first country is deforesting, it is not allowed to block at the border products from other countries who are doing the same. And this is a rule that a lot of countries have not understood correctly, or maybe they hide behind these rules to do nothing. But I made a debate with the Director General of WTO, and he clearly explained me, if something is prohibited in a country, you are fully allowed, to block at the border what is not corresponding to the local regulation. So imagine the result if we were really doing it clearly. If we were not accepting goods at the border that don't correspond to what we want in a country, it will oblige the other countries to be cleaner. It would oblige the other countries to be more efficient, to bring on the market products that would fit to the efforts of the one who want to make a better world. So it is not naive at all. It is not something that says we have to stop trade. It's not something that says we have to limit the transport of goods. It just says that it will increase the quality of what will be transported. It will increase the quality of the offer. The products that will be sold will be better if we put these limits of quality, if we put these requirements to be more efficient, to be environmental friendly, to fit with the regulations that can make a cleaner future.
Bertrand, also one of the things that we're really seeing during the current pandemic is that people are really relying a lot more on the scientific community, and we're listening to the science. How do you think this could help us moving forward, especially in the climate context where scientists have been telling us for the past 50 years what we now know is true about the future of the climate?
It will allow us to have a good answer to the people who say business first. Because in the past, when I was hearing financial people saying business first, I did not know what to answer. Because it's true that if you destroy business, you destroy the social link between the people, you destroy the equilibrium of the society, you have people unemployed, a lot of people suffering. And then you say, yes, if you don't have business first, everything collapses. But today, the situation is different. It's different because the clean technologies and the renewable energies have become more profitable than the old ways of doing. It's more profitable. You create more jobs. You're more efficient. So when you say business first, you can answer, yes, but which business? The business that destroys the environment, that creates very little number of jobs, and that's going to collapse, or the business that is going to hire much more people, increase employment rate, the business that is going to be more profitable because it pays for itself thanks to the efficiency of energy and resources. And if you speak about this type of business, yes, you can put this business first because this is the business that also protects the environment.
Absolutely, and it's protecting the environment and ensuring that we have good jobs for people as well. So really kind of coming into this whole multi-stakeholder centered approach to business. And do you see that there's going to be a real kind of shift in the way that business is done going forward?
I see a lot of big corporations who are making coalitions together in order to set some rules that will help the world to be more sustainable. And this is a really good sign, really good sign. You have hundreds and hundreds of companies who are now working to put cleaner products on the market, to have cleaner processes, to be carbon neutral. But it's not yet the majority of the businesses who are doing that. And this is why we absolutely need legal framework that obliges the ones who are reluctant to do as well as the pioneers. Because if you have two types of businesses, one that is clean and efficient and one that is dirty and polluting, you have a distortion of competitivity. So you need, on the short term, to make some legal framework that will avoid the distortion of competitivity and that will push everyone to go in the pioneering way that protects the environment. And then you will reach the critical mass in a lot of new dimensions that will make things emerge and be available. I give you an example, very practically speaking. Solar energy, wind energy are already cheaper than gas, oil, or coal in half of the world. But if you want to store this energy into hydrogen, hydrogen is an industry that is not yet profitable. So imagine that there would be a real clear guideline among the international community to push the hydrogen industry. Very quickly, we will reach the critical mass. It means that the fabrication of hydrogen and distribution of hydrogen will be much cheaper and will be affordable for everyone. And then you have a new industry that will emerge just because enough people wanted it to happen. But if you have just a few people who call for it, it's not enough and it will not happen and we will stay with an old industry. So we need the governments to really encourage, to push into the direction that all the companies go into some new directions to make a change happen.
That's great. So there you have it, a call to action to our governments, to our leaders, to really change our mindset, to think long term, and to build the future that is a sustainable one.
Yes, because governments have to understand that their role is to be leaders and not only managers. The bureaucracy can manage a country, but the government has to be a leader. The government has to show the way. It has to show a goal and has to explain why we need to reach this goal and how we can reach it. This is the role of governments. If the governments were sticking to this role, there would be much more support from the population. People would trust the governments when, we have to admit today, lots of people in the population are distrusting the governments and the political world.
Bertrand, this year we're celebrating 50 years of Earth Day. And although we've made some progress, we haven't quite gone far enough, as we know. So why is it that there's still so much to do when we've been talking about the importance of the environment and the climate and biodiversity for 50 years?
I think there has been a mistake in the last 50 years. It was to present protection of the environment as something that was very expensive, that needed a lot of subsidies, something that was a bit boring because it was reducing mobility, reducing comfort, reducing lifestyle, reducing growth, reducing trade. And people don't want to be reduced. People want better. They don't want less. So we should have presented the protection of the environment as something that was enthusiastic, something that was profitable, something that would increase quality of life, go forward and not backward. So fortunately today, the technologies exist to make protection of the environment more profitable than destruction of the environment. So maybe what was not really possible before is financially and technically feasible now.
And so your advice for leaders going forward is to really frame the discussion around the environment not as a sacrifice, but as something that will make us have a better life, a better tomorrow.
Yes, we should not oppose ecology and economy. We should not anymore oppose the protection of the environment and the protection of the business. No, today things can go together. So we have to encourage the businesses that protect the environment instead of the businesses that destroy the environment. But at the end, it's still a question of business.
Thank you for that. And you may have heard the ICC recently launched a campaign called Save Our SMEs SOS, and we're working very hard with micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to try to help them weather this particular crisis that we're in, but also ensuring that they are resilient and are able to confront any shocks that come their way in the future, and helping them to rebuild better. So we would love to have your support on this, Bertrand, especially from the perspective of how you ensure that you are part of the markets of the future.
Yes, I think it's an extremely good program, and we are available to help you for that with the portfolio of solutions that we are now selecting and identifying. I repeat, we have now 450 of them. The goal is to have 1,000. So all these solutions are available to you and to all of the people who need them, because we are non-for-profit. So for us, there is no way to retain anything. We're not selling anything. We're just making it completely open for the world. We are supported by corporations who are partners, like sponsors, but they participate with more than money. They participate also with experts, with bringing solutions, with using the solutions that we identify. So we have the financial means to be useful to others. And all these solutions are creating new trade possibilities, new opportunities, new products to put on the market. And I just give you an example that comes to my mind. Energy in the form of heat or cold can be something that you transport, you buy, and you sell. You can trade heat. There is a company in France called Ecotech Ceram. They have big blocks of ceramics, and they recover the heat that is lost in factories in order to bring this heat to the people who need it. So just to show you that there are so many more ways to envisage trade than what we had before. And when you have circular economy, you have much more things to trade. If you buy something that you throw away and that you put in the landfill as waste, trade is finished. The line is just interrupted. But when you use the waste to create energy, or to give it a second life, or to make a new material out of it, or to recycle it under another form, trade continues. So you have much more opportunities of trade if you have a circular economy and where every product becomes a new product than when you just throw it away.
That's great and really good reminder that with a circular economy, you actually have more to trade. That's really great. So as we're looking ahead to the future, Bertrand, and obviously we're all being very, very affected by the current crisis, and it is, a health and socioeconomic emergency, and it's very difficult for us, I think, to project how we will come out of this crisis. What are some of your kind of final thoughts to the listeners today on what we should be thinking about and how we should be thinking of a better tomorrow?
When we are in a crisis, in the beginning, it's normal to be anxious. It's normal to be afraid, because the crisis is the moment that destabilizes everything that we have done before. So we lose our references, we lose our habits, we lose our certitudes, and we can take nothing for granted. So in this moment, of course, we are anxious and we're afraid. But then what should happen? It should happen that we will look for better than what we had before. So we have the reaction we need is to think, I have lost what I was holding on to. It is irreversible. So what tool, what performance, what skill, what knowledge should I gain that I had not before? And by gaining it, I will be better than before. This is the thing we have to keep in mind. The problem is that a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people think, I've lost what I had before, I want to recover it. And very often it's not possible to recover it because it's an irreversible process going to the future. So we cannot go back to the past. So by trying to hold back to what we had before, we will suffer much more. And it makes the crisis useless because we lost what we had before, we are suffering, and we are lower than before. So that's a useless crisis. It's a useless suffering. We have to understand that. Trying to refuse something that we have lost is making us suffering much more. So we have to aim for much better. As soon as we lost what we had before, we have to think, what can I do that I did not do before? What can I obtain that I did not have before in order to be better after the crisis than before? So just very practical examples. Somebody who is confined in his house for 2 months and cannot go out, he can learn another language. He can learn another professional skill. He can do things that he had never time to do before. And when he recovers his job, he will have a better level than he had before. So he will have a professional promotion. He will have an advantage with a new language to have other type of customers, to have more responsibilities in his job. Maybe he can also create his own little company because he will have new skills. So imagine you can do that at an individual level. And you can do that at the level of a society, thinking we're going to be more sustainable. We're going to put on the market new innovative products at the level of a country, at the level of humankind. We can all think like that, which means that you will reduce the level of stress, you will reduce the level of anxiety, and you will increase your enthusiasm, increase the positive energy, because instead of saying, why did I lose something? You will ask to yourself, what can I gain to make it better in the future?
This is really what you're saying, Bertrand, is really all about the exponential change that is in our hands. So it is all about the choice and the mindset that we have as individuals and as society.
You are absolutely right, Majda. It's about the mindset that we decide to have. Because it's a decision we have to take. We have to decide if we believe that life is here to destroy us, or if life is here to oblige us to learn something new and to be better after than before. So it's a mindset. And sometimes there is nothing else to do than to accept that we are in deep trouble. And the acceptation does not mean that we are fatalist. No, acceptation means that we are just realistic. There are things that we cannot recover. So it's not a question of suffering because the solution has changed. It's the question of accepting that the situation will be different. And then it's a moment where we can create, we can invent the future. If we lost the past, if we are in deep trouble in the present, then the mindset should be, how can we make the future better? How are we going to build it? And it's not very often that we have the opportunity to build the future in another way, because each time that we are in normal business as usual situations, we can change nothing. And very often we know that the situation is getting bad, but we cannot change it. We know we're polluting the planet. We know we're increasing climate change. We know we're putting toxic stuff in the food of the people. But we cannot change it because we are taken into a momentum that cannot be stopped. The crisis is stopping the momentum. And the crisis is obliging us to rethink about what we are doing, what we want to be, and what we would like the future to become.
I couldn't agree more. So I think we'll start to wrap up for our listeners. But I just want to congratulate you on your truly remarkable achievement of 1,000 solutions and having 450 profitable solutions that have been tried and tested and are ready for market already is a fantastic contribution. And I will call out to all of the ICC network and all of the listeners today that if you think that you have um, a solution, do go on to the Solar Impulse Foundation's website and get in contact with Bertrand's team. And I'm sure they'd be very happy to welcome you and work with you on getting your solution out to market.
Yes, I would love your members each time they see or think or own a new solution that protects the environment in a profitable way to submit it to us. Because then we can bring it to our experts, label it, and promote it. So it's in the advantage of all your members. And of course, if your members need something, they can go to our website, solarimpulse.com, and we have the list. We have all the portfolio of the solutions we have already labeled, and they can contact directly the owner of the solution and work with him. It's like a marketplace where people can really become more efficient because of innovation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And so with that, I think we'll close and just say stay well. And as we start to think of our future, let's think about how we can build a better tomorrow and bring an innovative and pioneering spirit to what our future looks like. So thank you so much, Bertrand, for being with us. Thank you, Thomas. And thank you to everyone for listening in.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much, Majda.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you both for your time. As a reminder, we are hosting live broadcasts on this topic in addition to other trade topics like the Incoterms rules, cryptocurrency, and leadership coaching, along with many others. So sign up on our website for free and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the ICC Livecast. See you next time.